is this one, which is measuring cups. And so this is for measuring out larger quantities of items. So this is a quarter cup. This one is a third cup. This is a half cup. And this is a full cup. And they all fit in here. There is specifically like maybe a pastry type item, pie crust, things like that, you could put all of your ingredients into a bowl and you would open these up and you would grate this in, because you usually have, when you're making a pie crust, you have something like flour and then maybe butter that needs to be cut into the flour to blend it up and get everything into a good consistency so that you can make a dough out of it. And so you need to be able to blend that together. Usually a spoon doesn't work as well as something like this for that type of an item, for like a pastry dough. So you blend that together and it becomes a big workable dough that then you can take out and you can make your pie crust with it. So that is also a handy tool to have. And then once you do have your piece of pastry dough, you can take it out. You would flour the surface that you're working on, a countertop, and you would set that down and spread it out. And you could use this item to spread it completely out. And you could use this for maybe sugar cookies or for a pie crust, so that you can spread it very thin and be able to fill up a whole pie tin or be able to press out cookies. And this is a rolling pin. It is made of wood. It has two handles on the end, and then the middle part spins and allows you to roll across the surface. And so you would roll out your dough and keep working it until it's large enough to fit in a pie tin or on the top of a pie. And you could use this for apple pie, cherry, blueberry, or you could use this maybe even for a pot pie, which would be more vegetables, gravy, some pieces of meat. You could make little pot pies for dinner, and you could make the pastry crust using this, and then it makes that pastry crust nice and flat. And if you were making sugar cookies with this, then you could use a cookie cutter to make shapes. And there's many, many shapes. This is, I see just one example. It's a heart, but there are so many different shapes that you could make cookies with.